Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Jaded Blossom is celebrating their 10th birthday with a big sale. They have a new release including a new product, which is a lot of fun. As part of the celebration, they also have an amazing sale going on. Now this goes from November 24th through November 28th. I do want to mention that the October and November 2021 release items are not included in the sale. I do have a link provided in the description box if you want to go and check out their products. I love Jaded Blossom stamps and dies, and now I love their paper as well. So here are the items I received for their new release. The first item is a 6x6 paper pad. This is Jaded Blossom Celebration, and it's beautiful. The paper quality is amazing. It's 80 pounds, and I'll flip through this quickly so you can see all the fun different designs. There are 24 double-sided sheets, 12 different designs. You'll get 4 of each. I love the beautiful teals in this collection, and there are 2 papers that have their logo blossom, so that's really fun. Next up is a stamp set called Blossom. So this is that same floral design. You have the larger size and the smaller, and you have the multiple stamps so you can layer them using solid ink, or you could use the outline flowers and color if you like to color images. There are also 2 small sentiments. You have hello and friend. Next we have the Candy Grid die, and this is so fun. It has that stitched edging around those tiny circles, and this coordinates perfectly with their candy stamp sets. So they do have 2 new stamp sets. There's birthday candies and also friendly candies. All of those small images on the left will fit perfectly inside the stitch circles with the coordinating die. And then there's also some larger sentiments. So we have wish big, happy birthday, and party time. All those little sentiments and images are on 2 large stamps, and they're lined up perfectly so they'll work with that grid die. So you just need to stamp it once and then put your die on there, cut it out, and you have 9 little sentiments or images. And same with the friendly candies. We have several different sentiments with this set. Thinking of you, there's 2 hellos and 2 thank yous. And then you have all those tiny sentiments that will fit inside the grid die. So that's everything I received for the new release. There are some other items as well, and I will have a link for the whole new release in the description box below. Let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I'm using a sketch from Paper Play. This is number 50. For the background, I have this fun wide diagonal stripe paper. I'll be adding a panel of the larger blooms, and I'm lining everything on some teal cardstock. I decided to add a little extra shine to the card. I'm using Love from Lizzie peel-offs. These are the teal mirror in the pinstripe style, and the color matches beautifully with the whole paper collection. I'm using the narrowest and also the medium width, adding them to different stripes on that background paper. Not really following a pattern. I really want them to look a little random. Now I am leaving a gap in the center since that will be covered up by the floral paper. So this is just a great way to stretch the use of your peel-offs. Add 1 more piece. I do have the ends going off the edge of the paper, and I'll just wrap those around the back. That'll just make sure they won't fall off later. And I'll put some ATG tape on the back, and I do make sure that I'm getting that ATG tape on the ends of the peel-offs. I'll layer it on some teal cardstock, put my card front onto a card base, and for this card I am leaving that 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, so 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. Now I'll attach the floral paper. I'm using some liquid adhesive since I am attaching it on top of some of those peel-offs. I just want to make sure everything will stay together. For the sentiment, I'll be stamping it on some of the pattern paper. One of the designs has a tone-on-tone polka dot pattern, so I thought that would work perfectly. The ink color I'm using is Uptown by Catherine Pooler. Using the same background cardstock, I'll be stamping one of the blooms, the smaller flower, using that same colored ink. And now I'll fussy cut that out. If you love to color, this would be a very simple image to color. You could also do some heat embossing for some extra detail. And I'm cutting right along the edge of that stamp image. Once I have the flower cut out, I can attach it to my card. And I am following this sketch fairly closely. I won't be adding that tab on the right side of the floral paper. Instead, I'll put some small banners. Now before I attach the sentiment piece, I am putting some scrap cardstock pieces on the very right and left side where it goes off of that floral piece. And that'll help keep everything at the same level. I'll adhere the flower using some liquid adhesive. For this card, I decided to keep it nice and flat. It's always good to have some cards on hand that I can mail without paying any additional postage. In the upper left-hand corner, I'm adding 2 stitched banners, and these are from Jaded Blossom's banner die set. I cut out both of them from the same teal colored cardstock. I didn't want to bring in any other colors. For a finishing touch, I'm adding some Nuvo crystal drops to the center of the flower. This is the silver crystals color. And there is my finished card. I did make 2 using this sketch. And I think it's funny that the second card, I have the diagonals going the opposite direction. I didn't even notice until I laid the cards side by side. Now moving on to card design number 2. I have some teal cardstock for the background, and I'll be adding some paint splatter for some extra detail. I'm using 2 different colors. This first one has a pearlescent finish. Just put some water on the paint, put my paintbrush in there, and then tap it lightly over the paper. For the second color, I decided to add some black. This is a very easy way to add a little extra detail to some plain cardstock. So there it is, all finished and dry. I will be using a card sketch for inspiration. This is Freshly Made Sketches number 503. If you are interested in any of the card sketches I use in this video, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. That link is provided in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. I layered the teal cardstock onto some black cardstock, and most of my cardstock layers I add an additional 1/8 of an inch. So that teal cardstock is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. I selected 3 different pattern papers and cut them out using a stitch square die, and the die is part of Jaded Blossom's card mat die set. And I'll adhere them to the card following the design on the sketch. I did cut the squares larger than what's indicated on the sketch. I wanted more of the pattern paper to show. I cut out 2 different leaf branches, and this is from Jaded Blossom's flower die set. I used some silver mirror cardstock for both of those. It'll add some extra shine. And I'll adhere them in place using some liquid adhesive. I didn't put any of the liquid adhesive on the very end of the branches. That way they can lift up slightly and have some dimension. I put my acrylic block on top while I let the glue dry and tied a bow using some teal and white twine. Then I'll attach that to the ends of the branches using a small glue dot. Just trim off the extra tails. And I've stamped out the sentiment hello. I did cut the right side at an angle just for some extra interest, and I will add that scrap piece of cardstock on the right side before attaching it in place. And there is my finished card. Again, I did make 2 using this sketch. I really like this sketch. It's perfect for finishing off some of those small pattern paper scraps, or just to feature several different pattern papers on one card. For card design number 3, I'll be using one of Jaded Blossom's card layer dies. This is their original number 2. They have 4 different card layer dies, number 1, number 2, and also the reverse, which is their version B of number 1 and number 2. These are so fun and easy to use, and it's a great way to finish off your 6x6 paper and have 0 waste. Decided to use 2 different patterns for this card. adhere them onto that same teal cardstock that I'm using for, I think, all of the cards in this video. I did put a scrap piece of cardstock in that gap between the two pattern papers before attaching this stitch diagonal strip. I'll put some adhesive on the back and adhere my card front onto a card base. And the cardstock layer for that background is an additional 1/4 of an inch instead of the 1/8 of an inch. Now I'll be using the larger bloom on the Blossom set. And I've already stamped out the solid. I used Hot Tub color, and then the outline I used the Uptown color. Now I'll be adding the little center pieces to the flower. I'll first ink this up with some intense black ink from Honeybee Stamps. Then once I clean my stamp, I'll ink it again using some Versamark ink. I'll be doing some heat embossing. I'm using the holographic embossing powder by Love from Lizzie. And this will add some beautiful sparkle. I like having the black ink in the background so it still has that really strong contrast. Now I'll use a stitched oval die to cut this out. Now before I attach it to the card, I am adding those scrap cardstock pieces. And since it's an oval and it's going over that diagonal strip, I found it easier to cut out a smaller oval and then just trim off the very ends. I do have a little bit of ink on the back side of the oval where I was testing out what ink color I wanted to use for the flower. The cardstock I use is pretty thick, so that ink color doesn't go through to the other side. Once I have the oval attached, I can add the sentiment. For this card, I'm using Thank You. And I stamp this on some of the tone-on-tone polka dot pattern paper. I'll add that scrap cardstock to the left side where it goes off of the oval. And I do add 2 pieces, one of cardstock and one small scrap of the pattern paper. Put some liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it to the left side of the card. For a final finishing touch, I'll be adding some Love from Lizzie peel-offs. These are the mini circles in the teal mirror color. I'll put 2 in the upper right-hand corner and 3 around the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love using the card layer dies. So easy to create a variety of different card designs. For card design number 4, I'll be using the Candy Grid die and the Candies stamp sets. So I have some paper in my mini MISTI. I selected one of the stamps. And I already have it set, and I have inked it up already once, just testing it out. I'm using some Ombre ink from Hero Arts. So it has a really dark blue to a teal color. I do need to ink this up twice. So I love how you can just stamp all 9 of the images and sentiments, and then to cut them out, I'll just tape on the die since it lines up perfectly. So now that I've cut all of those out, you can see it has that fun stitch detail along the outside, and you also have that little grid piece left over. The small circle die cuts are the perfect size to glue to the end of a Hershey's Kiss or a little Rolo candy. But I decided I would try to use it for a card instead. I'm using a card sketch from Sweet Sunday. This is number 224. I have this fun floral paper for the background, and I'll be adding some of the tone-on-tone polka dot paper for that larger rectangle. I'm layering it on some dark blue cardstock and then again on the teal cardstock. Thought it was time to bring in another color instead of just the teal. I'll put my card front onto a card base. For this card, I won't be leaving any of the white card base showing. On this sketch, they have a little scallop border. I decided to do a wavy border, and this is from Jaded Blossom's border die set number 1. It's one of my favorite border die sets. So I kept that little cut out grid, and I'll be layering it on some teal cardstock. Some of those areas around the edge are really narrow, so I'm using liquid adhesive to attach it. I'm leaving about a 1/4 of an inch border along that outside edge. For the 3 small banners, I decided just to use solid cardstock. So I have the teal, the dark blue, and also some white. I'll just cut the fishtail by hand. If you have a die, you can definitely use that if you're not very good at cutting the fishtail. Sometimes I find it quicker to just cut them myself. I'll put some ATG tape on the back, line up the two outside banners, leave enough room in the middle so I can attach that white banner. And I'll flip it over, try to make sure everything is nice and straight. Before attaching it to the card, I will add some layers, that way everything is nice and level. For the lower portion, I'm using some cardstock. I laid the panel on the card, just flipped it over so I can see exactly how big of a piece I need. And I'll also add some of the little cardstock pieces on the right and left side of those banners. For the top portion, it goes up a little higher since it's going off of 3 different layers, I think. So I'm using some thin foam squares. I remove the release paper on the foam and then I'll put liquid adhesive on the back to attach the rest. So now I have all 9 of those squares to fill in. If you just want to put images and only 1 sentiment, you could stamp out some of the other images, but I decided to put 3 images and 3 sentiments. I selected sentiments that I think work well together. For the very bottom row, I'm putting some solid pieces. So to attach everything, I'm using some liquid adhesive. So I have a butterfly, the sentiment hello, another flower, for my friend, a flower, and you're the best. At first that you're the best went in crooked. I was glad I was able to straighten that out. For the narrow strip that's indicated on the sketch, I'm using some bluish pearlescent cardstock, gluing it right through the center of the 3 white circles. And I'll also add a small stitched star, and this is from Jaded Blossom's banner die set. To finish off the card, I'll add some white gem stickers, and these are by Honeybee Stamps. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I'm not sure if that was the intended purpose for the grid die, but I think this was fun to add to a card. For card design number 5, I'm using one of my favorite dies from Jaded Blossom. This is their Poinsettia die. They also have a small poinsettia. I can never resist making at least 1 card using pink, and I think the pink and teal look so pretty together. I have this fun grid pattern for the background, layered it on the teal cardstock, put my card front onto a card base, then I'll add a white stitched oval die cut, and I used some shimmer cardstock for that. Then I cut out the flower with 3 different shades of pink. The shade in the middle has a pearlescent finish, so that's really pretty. This is a fairly large die. You could add one of the small poinsettias with it, but I like to have the large flower as the main feature on my card. I cut out the leaves using the same teal cardstock. Then I used a light teal cardstock for the little branches. For the little swirly decorative pieces, I used some pink satin mirror cardstock. And the very center of the flower, I used some white glitter cardstock. It's got a little extra shine and sparkle. So once I have all of those pieces attached, I'm curling the edge of the petals. So this still would lay fairly flat inside an envelope, but otherwise it looks like it has some dimension. For the sentiment, I used one of the birthday candies, Happy Birthday to You, and I did pop it up using a thin foam square. Then a final finishing touch, adding some more of the gem stickers, 2 in the upper right hand corner and 1 above the sentiment. So there is my finished card. Should be no surprise, this is my favorite card. I also wanted to show how the little candy pieces worked. See how they fit perfectly on the very end of a Hershey Kiss. Now here's another look at the 10 cards I made using Jaded Blossom's birthday celebration release. The pattern paper for all of my cards was from the Jaded Blossom Celebration paper pack. I was so excited when I saw they were releasing a paper collection. Now don't forget, their birthday celebration sale is going on now, November 24th through November 28th, 2021. Don't miss out. I know some of those products are going to sell out quickly. I do have links for all of the products I used in this video in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.